The war in Iran was already splitting MAGA, and that was before the Iranians decided they didn't want to quit. And for his part, Donald Trump is siding with the Rubio wing versus Vance's isolationist wing.
A wonderful Secretary of State. We have a good one in Washington, too. Marco. Do we like Marco? I think so.
With us now, former Vice President Mike Pence. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Oh, thank you, Leland. Good to be back with you.
How do you explain this split in the Republican Party, especially during a time of war? And more importantly, what does it say that President Trump, for whatever your differences with him have been in the past, is now back to firmly in the camp of a aggressive foreign policy?
Well, first, if you permit me, let me just say how proud I am of all the men and women in our armed forces who, since the initiation of hostilities, have, I think, performed brilliantly. And also, I do want to give President Trump all the credit in the world for having the guts to pull the trigger. I mean, it was last year with Operation Midnight Hammer that for the first time American forces took the fight directly to the heart of world terrorism. But this year, launching the overwhelming force of American military might, the president has really decided, after 47 years of Iran as the leading state sponsor of terrorism, America said enough is enough. We had a commander-in-chief that unleashed the best military in the world to deal with it. But look, I will tell you, to answer your question, the president I serve with is no isolationist. His predecessor in our time, Barack Obama, talked about America leading from behind, if you remember. And President Donald Trump, I can assure you, leads from the front.
Well, that's
in this instance, I think you saw the president, with our cherished ally Israel and Israeli Defense Forces, make the decision to lead, to finally take the fight directly to the mullahs in Tehran. And I'm proud and grateful for the president's decision, but candidly, Leland, I'm not surprised.
Okay. All good points. I think what you led with about how proud you are of the U.S. military is what we would expect in wartime from Americans at all, but especially from the Republican Party. Right. And yet that isn't happening. There is a divide. We weren't 10 or 15 hours into the war with Iran that there was a divide on the side of just the Republicans, as many Republicans are now treating members of the military, I know you have a son and a son-in-law who serve, like a bill to be passed. Where is that patriotism that used to unite, much less America, but your party? Well,
you know, it's good for me to be in Washington, but I live in Indiana.
Yeah.
And
it is good for you to be in Washington?
I would tell you that there's a divide happening among some commentators, some online influencers, but I really do believe that Republicans, including Republicans who would describe themselves as MAGA Republicans, are overwhelmingly supportive of the president's decision.
So you don't buy the divide?
And of our forces. No, I know. I want to accept that there is a divide among some of the loudest voices, but that's not really anything new. I mean, what we've seen is a rising tide of isolationist voices on the airwaves, online, and I think it's one of the things that the president deserves credit for in this case, is that he essentially, as he did last year with Operation Midnight Hammer, Leland, he turned a deaf ear to those isolationist voices and said, no, we're going to take action. We're going to unleash America's military. It's going to be in the interest of the security and safety of the American people, of our cherished ally Israel, and of peace and stability in the world.
It is not going to be free. Freedom is not free. 7 casualties. Right. Horrific individually. I think we've all been surprised by how few casualties there has been, a testament to the success and professionalism of the U.S. Military. But there's going to be a greater cost to be paid, which is economically, certainly if this continues on. Here's Republicans talking about gas prices. Take a listen.
I think this is temporary, and then I think the gas prices will go down.
If it doesn't end quickly.
I'm saying your premise is wrong. It will. Okay.
It's going to be bad. I mean, if oil prices spike, we're
yeah.
You know, and the Republicans are really
Unfortunately, prices are going to be up for a while until this ends.
Have Americans forgotten what sacrifice means?
Well, I don't think Americans have. Some people in the political class have forgotten that. But the simple truth is that with the people that are in harm's way at this very hour are doing work that's going to ultimately result in not only greater security for the American people, but ultimately greater prosperity. But let me also say, it's clear from the latest efforts in the Strait of Hormuz that Iran thinks that they can disrupt energy production, energy flow, and supplies to the wider world. And I know our military is going to confront that, but what the good news is that during our administration, during the Trump-Pence years, and during the current Trump administration, the unleashing of American energy. I mean, America is today a net exporter of oil. We're one of the largest producers of oil and energy in the world. That has also contributed to our national security and our ability to prosecute America's interests around the globe in this moment. So I accept the fact there may be short-term impacts in our energy markets, but people ought to recognize that years ago, when Republicans in Congress actually took a stand with President Obama and said we need to lift the ban on exporting American oil, that literally today America is a net exporter of oil, and our energy independence is contributing to our national security.
I would put one exclamation point on that if Iran is going to hold the world hostage, as they are trying to do and may for the short term be able to, it is all the more reason why this war was necessary. But there is a
Leland, if I may, this war was necessary because 47 years ago, when the mullahs took over Tehran, they took Americans hostage and held them for more than 400 days. 2 years later, they took the lives of 220 Marines, 20 more service members in the attack on the Marine Corps barracks in Beirut, Lebanon. And every year since, whether it was their support for insurgents in Afghanistan and Iraq, whether it's support for the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas on October the 7th.
No argument. The list
we've been fighting the tentacles of terrorism for 47 years. President Trump, our military today are taking the fight directly to the source.
No argument in terms of the evilness of Iran, why they must be dealt with. But there are a big part of the Republican Party that is not so interested in seeing that job finished. I'm always fascinated at the intersection. I used to work there, as you know, between Fox News and President Trump. It's sometimes hard to figure out who's leading who. You can smile and laugh. You don't need to comment on that. But this was Laura Ingraham a couple of nights ago. Take a listen.
They're going to have to do it because freedom is costly, right? Our soldiers are dying. Our soldiers are dying in this. Israel's citizens are dying. We have more than 100 soldiers wounded, some seriously wounded. So, like, we're paying a big price. So the Iranian people need to stand up.
You have passionately and rightly made the case in this interview for President Trump's actions, why they were necessary, why they need to continue, and yet there is the groundwork being laid for America to now walk away. Do you share a fear that I do that would happen?
I have concern about the voices that are emerging on that front. To talk about an off-ramp, for heaven's sakes. I mean, look.
Well, President Trump said we won.
What is essential right now is that our commander-in-chief permit the armed forces of the United States and our allies in the region to finish the job once and for all. We need to end the threat that this regime has posed, not only across the region, but the literally nearly 1,000 American lives, service members whose lives have been taken in 47 years. That's all got to come to an end, but it's going to require us finishing the fight. And I must tell you that last night at the rally, I caught a brief clip of the president using exactly that language. And I think it's important that we give our troops, that we stand with our allies, that we demonstrate the resolve that we are going to finish this fight once and for all, demand an unconditional surrender by the mullahs in Tehran, and give the Iranian people, who have clamored for freedom since that Green Revolution in 2009, who took to the streets in the first few months of this year, only to see tens of thousands cut down by security forces. if we continue to pound the security infrastructure in Iran, I believe that we'll create the conditions where the people of Iran can reclaim their country, and, Leland, just as important, in so doing, I believe the United States has an opportunity to restore the deterrence that was squandered in that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan under President Joe Biden.
All right. Mr. Vice President, thank you very much, sir. It's good to see you as always.
You too.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.